"Daddy, you promised you wouldn't find us a new mom." Ava's voice drifted through the bedroom like a breeze, soft and light, as golden sunsets spilled across the room. The ceiling was painted with wisps of clouds, delicate and pale. Beside her, Lily lay still, clutching her identical doll, like two mirrors facing one another. Ava's eyes, deep and blue like a September sky, shimmered with unshed tears. "You said Mommy is with the stars now, but that she still loves us from up there." Nathan stood frozen at the doorway, still in his doctor's white coat, his hand tightening around the strap of his bag. Ava's words hit him like a tremor, not because of what she said, but because of the clarity, the quiet ache in her voice. He looked at his 7-year-old twins, silent, composed, as if the whole world were knocking on their door, and no one bothered to answer. He walked over and knelt between their beds. He took one small hand in each of his, hands cold and delicate, like porcelain. "No one, no one can ever replace your mom," he whispered, his throat tightening. "The girl who's coming tomorrow is just going to help me take care of you while I'm at work." "You promise?" Lily murmured, her voice barely more than air. "I promise." The words fell into the silence like a leaf landing on a still lake. 7 months since the accident. 7 months since laughter left this house. Nathan swallowed hard, trying to choke down the feeling that he was failing. But he knew. His daughters needed more than love. They needed rhythm, stability, and someone who could fill in the quiet spaces of the long days he was away. The two little girls exchanged a silent glance only twins could understand, then nodded in unison. In the past few months, they had gone through 4 nannies. None had lasted more than 3 weeks. The doorbell rang precisely at 7 a.m., right as the clock in the foyer chimed, as if the person outside refused to be even a minute late. In the kitchen, the scent of coffee still lingered in the air. Mrs. Whitley, who had been the Rivers family's housekeeper for over 2 decades, wiped her hands on her apron and headed toward the front door. On the porch stood a young woman, around 26, wearing a pale blue dress and a warm, unassuming smile. A small suitcase rested by her feet. "Good morning," she said, voice as soft as early mist. "I'm Emily Moore. I'm here for the nanny position." Mrs. Whitley's eyes scanned her up and down with practiced scrutiny. No makeup, no designer bag. The way she stood, straight but not stiff, made the older woman pause. This one was different, not dazzled by the size of the house, not sizing up the furniture. "Come in, Miss Moore," she said at last, her voice neutral. "Dr. Rivers is expecting you in the study." Emily stepped inside, the quiet click of her shoes echoing gently on the hardwood floor. The house was hushed, so silent that every step seemed amplified. Family photos lined the hallway, some with a fine layer of dust, some too carefully cleaned. She passed a coat rack with 2 tiny jackets, one purple, one yellow. Twins, she thought, separate, but always side by side. In the study, Nathan was buried in a stack of papers. When Emily entered, he looked up, and for the briefest second, something shifted in his expression. Not surprise at her youth exactly, but recognition that she wasn't like the others. Emily extended her hand with quiet confidence. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Dr. Rivers." Nathan gestured for Emily to sit, then closed the folder in front of him with quiet deliberation. "The agency didn't send me your full resume," he said, not unkindly, but cautiously. "I expected someone with more experience." "You mean older?" Emily smiled, unbothered. Nathan gave a slow nod. He was used to nannies who came with years of household experience and reference letters as long as novels. But Emily sat calmly, no trace of forced confidence or overcompensation. "My degree is in early childhood education," she began. "But my focus has always been emotional development in grieving children." "Grieving?" Nathan asked, one brow lifting. Kids who've lost a parent, a sibling, someone who grounded their world, she clarified. Her voice softened. I once worked with a pair of twins who lost their father in a sudden accident. They stopped speaking entirely. Nathan leaned back, studying her more closely. With twins, loss isn't just about losing a parent, Emily continued. It's about losing the mirror that reflects their inner world. One grieves, and the other absorbs it in silence. Her words struck deep. Ava and Lily hadn't spoken to anyone outside the house for months. No teachers, no therapists, only to each other, and sometimes not even that. Sometimes, Emily said gently, simple things like bubbles or cookie dough or clay can build the bridge. They don't replace words, but they invite them. Nathan folded his hands, quiet. They're very hard to reach, he finally admitted. Since their mother passed, they haven't spoken to anyone outside the family. Even with me, they keep their distance. Children are often more sensitive than we realize, Emily replied. May I meet them? He hesitated, then nodded. The glass garden stretched behind the house, a place that once belonged to Rachel. Morning light poured through the tall panels, casting soft, dappled shadows on the tiled floor like watercolors. In the center stood a double swing, and on it sat Ava and Lily, still as statues. They wore identical pale pink dresses with puffed sleeves and white lace collars. Their blonde hair was tied neatly with matching sky blue ribbons. Their faces mirrored each other eerily, but the distance lay in their eyes. One cautious, the other guarded. Nathan stood at the threshold, his voice gentle. Ava, Lily, this is Miss Emily. She'll be staying with us for a while. The twins turned their heads at the exact same moment, perfectly synchronized, the kind of motion that unsettled strangers. But they said nothing. No nod, no reaction. Emily didn't flinch. She walked closer, unhurried, unforced. Then she lowered herself onto the dewy grass, directly across from them, her skirt touching the earth without hesitation. You know, she began, her voice quiet, almost as if she were speaking to herself. When I was your age, my grandma taught me something magical. No reaction, no glance, just the whisper of leaves in the wind. She said, when words don't come, bubbles can speak for us. From her bag, she pulled out a small ocean blue bottle. Each bubble carries a thought, a wish, a word left unsaid. With a soft breath, she blew through the wand. Dozens of iridescent bubbles floated upward, catching light and spinning like tiny orbs of wonder. They shimmered with fleeting rainbows. Ava lifted her gaze slightly. Lily narrowed her eyes, watching one large bubble hover just in front of them. From his place in the shadowed doorway, Nathan held his breath. Emily said nothing more. She simply continued. One bubble, then another, and another. A bubble brushed against Ava's cheek and popped, and in that fragile instant, something shifted. Ava smiled. The air held still after Ava's fleeting smile, as if the world itself was afraid to move. Emily didn't speak. She remained seated on the grass, one hand gently cradling the bubble jar like something sacred. Another breath. Another round of smaller bubbles drifted upward, quiet and glistening. One floated directly in front of Lily, just inches from her face. It spun slowly, reflecting soft hues of lilac and pearl. Lily stared at it, her small hands resting motionless in her lap. Then, gently, she raised her hand. Nathan, still standing near the doorway, half shadowed by the sun, held his breath. His eyes locked on that subtle movement, afraid it would vanish if he blinked. Lily's hand hovered beneath the bubble. She didn't touch it, didn't try to catch it. She simply welcomed it. Emily noticed, but she said nothing. No praise, no smile, just another gentle breath. Another bubble drifted low, brushing against Lily's arm before vanishing into air. Lily glanced at Ava, a slow, searching look, like a silent question passed between them. Ava gave the tiniest of nods. For the first time in months, Lily didn't close off. Emily pulled the wand from the jar and turned it slowly in her fingers, as though waiting for something unspoken. "Would you like to try?" she asked softly, not looking directly at either girl. Ava flicked her eyes briefly toward her father, then turned to Lily. The two exchanged one of those wordless twin glances, the kind no one else ever truly understands. Lily gave the slightest nod, barely a breath of movement, but it was enough to begin. When Lily nodded, just barely, like a petal shifting in the breeze, something imperceptible shifted in the air. No one said a word, but Ava's glance toward her sister held a warmth like the first sunlight after endless rain. Emily didn't press, didn't praise. She simply smiled instinctively and rose from the grass. Brushing dew from her dress, she spoke in a voice low and conspiratorial. "I know how to make cookies that change color when you bite them." Both girls looked up, eyes flickering with the tiniest light. Ava, for the second time since her mother's passing, opened her mouth. "Really? Really? But I'll need 2 little sorceresses to help," Emily replied, tilting her head playfully. Lily didn't speak, but she took Ava's hand. And so the 3 of them headed to the kitchen. As the 2 girls walked hand in hand into the house with Emily, Nathan remained seated in the garden, his eyes fixed on the small bubble bottle left forgotten on the grass. He picked it up gently, as if holding a precious treasure. In just 20 minutes, that young woman had done what he hadn't been able to in months. She had brought a smile back to his daughters' faces. His emotions were a mixture, relief tinged with a hint of bitterness, as if he had failed in his role as a father. But for the first time since the accident, he also felt a flicker of hope. The sound of children's laughter echoed from the kitchen, a sound he had forgotten for far too long. Nathan slipped the bubble bottle into his coat pocket and stood up. The Rivers kitchen had once been Rachel's kingdom, a place of vanilla scent and soft laughter. Since the accident, it had become sterile, silent, functional, until today. Flour coated the countertops like a winter layer. Food coloring bottles, red, blue, yellow, purple, were scattered like paint jars. Ava dumped green into her bowl with theatrical flair, mixing wildly, her arms speckled in dough from elbow to fingertip. "My cookies will be the most magical," she declared to no one in particular. "It'll just turn green, not magical," Ava muttered in her usual matter-of-fact tone. Nathan held his breath. That was the longest exchange between his daughters in months. Emily didn't comment, continuing naturally as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world. "Every cookie has its own kind of magic," she replied seriously. "Just like people," she added. "Everyone's different, but everyone's special." Mrs. Whitley appeared beside Nathan, her eyes glistening. "It's been 7 months and 12 days since I last heard them argue over something so trivial," she whispered. "Just like before." Nathan nodded, too choked up to speak. Just like before. Those words carried so much weight. They brought back too many memories. Clara, his late wife, used to stand in this very kitchen, teaching the girls how to mold cookie dough, singing as she worked. Emily looked up and saw him standing at the doorway, but she didn't seem surprised or embarrassed by the mess. "Nathan, you're just in time to supervise the baking phase," she said casually. "These 2 little chefs need an official oven inspector." Lily and Ava turned to look at him. For a moment, Nathan feared they would retreat again, but unexpectedly, Lily called out, "Daddy, look at mine." "They're constellations." She pointed at the cookies speckled in blue and purple. "Mine's prettier," Ava chimed in, showing cookies with delicate green and yellow designs. Nathan stepped forward cautiously, as if trying not to startle 2 resting birds. "They all look delicious?" he said warmly, leaning down to admire them. "We'll pop them in the oven. 12 minutes and they'll be ready," Emily said, checking the time. "While we wait, how about we clean up a bit?" Strangely, the girls agreed at once, jumping into action as if it were a game. Ava sorted utensils by size before bringing them to the sink, while Lily theatrically swept up the flour. Mrs. Whitley cleared her throat softly. "Miss Emily, allow me to clean up," she offered with professional poise. "Thank you, Mrs. Whitley," Emily responded gently but firmly. "But I think it's better if the girls finish what they've started. Don't you agree, girls?" Both nodded and continued tidying up. Nathan glanced at Mrs. Whitley. He gave a subtle nod, signaling his approval of Emily's approach. The housekeeper stepped back, but not before casting one last evaluative look around the kitchen. Nathan stepped forward, hesitant. "Should I help?" Emily turned, smiling softly. "You could make hot chocolate. Magical cookies need a worthy drink." And Nathan stood still before the cabinet, his hand reaching slowly for the old cocoa tin Rachel used to love, as if touching a memory that still breathed. The cocoa tin was still in the top left corner of the pantry, worn, slightly dented, with a small ink stain Rachel used to call the kitchen's kiss. Nathan took it down, his hands trembling slightly. The scent of dry cocoa drifted up, familiar, old, aching. He set it on the counter, inhaled slowly, and began preparing it by memory. He didn't need a recipe. It had lived in his hands for years, especially in the winters they spent together. In the living room, Emily stayed with the girls. She didn't push questions, didn't overfill the silence. She simply left room, warm enough for grief to thaw on its own. "Mom used to make hot chocolate every Friday night," Lily murmured as the scent crept in from the kitchen. Ava nodded. "She said the secret was a pinch of sea salt. That made it taste like a winter hug." Emily smiled, but said nothing. Nathan stood in the kitchen doorway, spoon in hand, listening, watching. "Mom baked cookies like this too," Ava added, "but she always said Lily's rose better." "That's 'cause I didn't dump an entire bottle of food coloring in mine," Lily whispered. They laughed, lightly, but truly. Nathan took a breath, steadying his voice. "Hot chocolate's ready," he said. "Anyone want to try a winter hug?" Both girls looked up. For the first time in months, they didn't look away. No fear, no withdrawal, just the quiet return of love, unsure but willing. When the oven timer rang, everyone jumped slightly. "The cookies are done!" the girls squealed in unison. Nathan watched as Emily guided the girls in, taking the cookies out of the oven, reminding them to be careful, yet still allowing them to feel like they were in charge. Just as promised, the cookies truly were magical. When Lily broke hers in half, swirling shades of blue and purple revealed themselves beneath the pale golden crust. Ava's cookies had delicate streaks of green and yellow running through them. "Real magic!" Lily exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. "That's just the oven heat reacting with the food coloring," Ava explained with her usual serious tone, though her eyes still gleamed with wonder. All four of them sat around the small kitchen table, the one usually reserved for staff, not guests. No one mentioned it. There was something comforting in the simplicity of the moment. Paper napkins instead of linen, laughter erupting as Ava discovered her tongue had turned green. "Daddy, you've got chocolate on your mustache," Lily burst out laughing. Nathan quickly wiped his mouth with a napkin, not out of embarrassment, but surprised that his daughter noticed such a tiny detail. It was something she used to do all the time. And now it had returned. "Miss Emily," Ava said suddenly, her tone serious, "are you coming back tomorrow?" The question made the room pause. Nathan realized they hadn't actually discussed hiring Emily. The interview had somehow turned into a bubble-blowing session, then a baking class. Emily looked over at Nathan, waiting for his response. "Of course she'll be back," he said, surprised by the certainty in his own voice. "If she's willing." "I'd be happy to," Emily nodded. "I still have so many magical things to share." "Like what?" Lily asked, her curiosity piqued. "Like making flowers change color with just water and a little science. Like building fairy houses in the garden to attract real butterflies. Or painting constellations that glow in the dark." The girl's eyes widened with every promise. Even Nathan found himself drawn in. "When can we build the fairy house?" Ava asked, no longer pretending to be aloof. "We'll need to gather a few special materials first," Emily replied. "Tomorrow we can start with a garden expedition." "Can you stay for dinner?" Lily asked suddenly. "To tell us more about the fairy house?" Nathan was taken aback. Since the funeral, the girls had avoided meals with anyone outside the family, often even eating alone in their rooms. "Lily, Miss Emily might have other plans tonight." "Actually, I'm free," Emily interrupted, surprising him again. "But I completely understand if you'd prefer a private family dinner." "We want her to stay," Ava said, and Lily nodded eagerly. A rush of conflicting emotions stirred in Nathan. Joy at seeing his daughter so excited, but also a flicker of unease. How had Emily slipped so effortlessly into their lives? "Then it's settled," he agreed. As the girls tidied up their cups, following Emily's "finish what you start" rule, Nathan looked at her with newfound respect. "I didn't expect such a quick connection," he said quietly. "They were ready to open up," she replied. "They just needed a safe bridge to cross." "And that bridge was magic bubbles?" he asked with a faint smile, still a little skeptical. "No," Emily said gently. "It was trust. The bubbles, the cookies, they're just tools. What matters is creating a space where children feel safe enough to be themselves." Nathan nodded, quietly taking her words to heart. There was something deeply trustworthy about Emily, a steady warmth he hadn't encountered before. For the first time in months, he felt like he wasn't raising his daughters alone. 3 weeks passed as swiftly as a breath. The Rivers estate, once shrouded in silence and heavy routines, slowly transformed under Emily's gentle influence. Laughter from the 2 little girls began echoing once more through the long, quiet hallways. Nathan adjusted his tie in front of the mirror in his dressing room. The board of directors was waiting for him to present a major project in less than an hour, yet his mind lingered on this morning's breakfast, Lily and Ava chattering excitedly about their rooftop garden plans with Emily. "The car is ready, sir," Mrs. Whitley announced from the doorway. "Thank you. I won't need anything else. The girls are with Emily already?" "Yes, in the greenhouse choosing plants." She paused for a moment. "Miss Moore is a blessing to this home." Nathan turned toward his longtime housekeeper, surprised by her rare emotional remark. "You're right," he admitted. "I didn't expect the girls to change like this. If I may say so, sir, it's not just the girls who've changed." Before he could reply, his phone rang. His assistant reminded him that he needed to leave immediately if he wanted to be on time. Mrs. Whitley promised they'd finish their conversation later and headed downstairs. As she passed the greenhouse, she paused. Through the glass, she saw the 2 girls kneeling, focused on picking out plants, while Emily explained things patiently. She wore a light blue shirt, her hair in a simple braid, nothing like the polished, performative nannies who had come before. There was something natural about her, effortless, magnetic. Sensing a gaze, Emily looked up and smiled, waving. The girls turned too, beaming brightly. "Daddy," Lily called, "come see the plants we picked." For a fleeting second, Nathan nearly decided to cancel the meeting. The thought passed through him so quickly, it startled him. In 7 years leading the company, he had never once prioritized anything over a board meeting. "Not right now, sweetheart," he called back, real regret in his voice. "But when I get home, I want to see everything. Deal?" The girls nodded, showing no disappointment like he feared. Emily whispered something that made them both burst into laughter. "We'll send you pictures, Daddy," Ava added, making his heart swell. In the car, he kept thinking about how in recent months he had started watching the clock during meetings, not to track speaking time, but to count down the minutes until he could go home. The board meeting dragged on longer than expected. By the time he left the office, it was 3 hours past dinner. He called home. "The girls have eaten," Mrs. Whitley said, "but they refused to go to bed until you got home to see their garden." When he arrived, the house no longer felt hollow. It had the peaceful calm of a lived-in home. Following the faint glow of string lights, Nathan climbed to the rooftop and froze at the sight before him. The girls, dressed in pajamas, were curled up in blankets on an outdoor sofa. Emily sat beside them, reading aloud in a hushed voice. The rooftop, once barren, now bloomed under twinkling lights and soft foliage. A living wall brimmed with greens and tiny white-purple flowers. "Daddy, look what we made!" Lily cried as he stepped closer. Nathan set down his briefcase and approached, his expression one of quiet awe. "It's beautiful," he said sincerely. "You made all this yourselves?" "We picked each plant," Ava said proudly. "Emily taught us how to plant them, so they help each other grow." "Plants are like people," Emily explained. "Some need full sun, some prefer shade, some require lots of water, others very little. The secret is balance." "Just like us," Lily said, pointing to a vibrant plant. "I'm like this one, and Vale is like that one." A calm, sturdy succulent. Nathan took a closer look. Tiny labels written in Ava's careful handwriting, colorful stones marking areas, clearly Lily's touch. The clever irrigation setup impressed him. "This is a masterpiece," he praised. "Beauty and function in harmony." "Emily's idea," Ava added. "She said a garden should be lovely and useful, just like a home." Nathan looked at Emily. For the first time, he saw more than professional pride in her eyes. There was something deeply personal, a quiet emotion behind the smile. He suddenly wondered, how could someone like Emily, intelligent, compassionate, choose to be a nanny, even in a wealthy household? "All right, little plant engineers," he said playfully. "Bedtime now. We'll continue tomorrow." Surprisingly, the girls didn't protest. They hugged Emily tightly, then ran to their father. "Good night, Daddy," Lily whispered, hugging him. "Can you tell us a story?" Ava tugged at his hand. A lump caught in Nathan's throat. Since Clara's passing, this was the first time the girls had asked him to tell them a story, something their mother used to do every night. "Of course," he said, steadying his voice. "Go brush your teeth. I'll be right up." As they ran off, Nathan turned to Emily. The two remained on the softly lit rooftop. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Don't thank me," Emily replied gently. "I'm just doing my job." "Please, call me Nathan," he said. "After everything you've done, you've earned that." "All right, Nathan," she smiled softly. "But I'm not just doing this for work. The girls are amazing. They just needed someone to remind them." Something in her voice caught his attention. "You speak like you've known them a long time." "I've worked with children like them before," she said. "Twins, trauma survivors. Some patterns are familiar." "Why did you leave that work?" Emily looked down briefly. There was a flicker of sadness in her eyes. "I needed a different perspective. Sometimes helping one family matters more than trying to fix a whole system." Nathan didn't press further. He sensed a boundary. Even though the girls trusted her completely, Emily kept a part of herself guarded. "I should go tell that story," he gestured toward the door. "Will you stay a bit longer?" "I've got a few more little plants to water, then I'll head out." He hesitated, then asked, Tomorrow. Would you stay for dinner? Not as the nanny, but as a guest? She looked at him without flinching. Would you like me to? I would, he admitted. Emily was quiet for a moment, then smiled. I'd love to. Thank you. Nathan turned back toward the house, heart pounding. He couldn't remember the last time he'd invited someone to dinner just because he wanted to. Passing by Clara's portrait, he stopped. For the first time, seeing her smile didn't fill him with guilt. The girls are doing better, he whispered. We're finding our way back. 2 months later, the river's garden bloomed under the spring sun. Long tables, adorned with wildflowers and strings of colorful lights, stretched beneath the trees. Laughter and the chatter of children filled the air. It was Lily and Ava's 8th birthday, the first real celebration since the accident. The girls darted between guests in matching sky-blue dresses, their bows the only difference. Purple for Lily, green for Ava. 2 distinct colors Emily had suggested to help them express individuality while honoring their twin bond. Nathan stood on the rooftop garden, now in full bloom, a living canvas of the memories they had nurtured together. Beside him, Emily adjusted a loose strand of lights. This might be the happiest birthday I've ever seen, she said with a smile as she finished. It's all thanks to you, Nathan replied, gently squeezing her hand. The past weeks had unfolded as a delicate dance between care and connection. By day, Emily remained the professional caregiver. But in the afternoons and on weekends, something quieter had grown between her and Nathan, a relationship of trust, slow but honest. The girls, with their uncanny intuition, had embraced it effortlessly. It's like when Ava is my sister and my best friend, Lily once explained. Everyone has a different hat for each moment, Ava added, echoing one of Emily's favorite lessons. Sir, the candles are ready, Mrs. Whitley announced, noticeably softer in tone today. Thank you. Please gather everyone by the main table for me. When she left, Nathan turned to Emily. I have something for you, he said, pulling a small box from his jacket pocket. I meant to give it after the party, but now feels right. Emily looked at him, surprised. Their relationship was still fragile, like a flower in early bloom. Neither had put a name to it yet. Nathan, that's not necessary. Just open it, he said gently. Inside was not a ring, as she briefly imagined, but a small golden key, adorned with a tiny charm shaped like a bubble. It's a key to this house, he said, his voice trembling slightly. Not as staff, not as a guest, but as someone who belongs here, with us, always. Emily was speechless. It wasn't a proposal, but it meant more. It was an invitation to step fully into their lives, at her pace, by her choice. Are you sure? This is a big step. I've never been more sure. My daughters love you. And he swallowed. I do too. Those 3 words, I love you, floated out softly, yet carried the weight of truth. Not out of gratitude, not out of loneliness, out of love. Emily closed her fingers around the key, her eyes glistening. She looked down, then back at him, vulnerable, yet steady. I love you too, she whispered. And this means more than I can say. I love you and those 2 little witches who changed my life. They shared a kiss, gentle, familiar, not their first, but one that opened a new chapter. Daddy, Emily, Lily's voice rang out. Time to blow out the candles. They left the rooftop together and joined the crowd around the large cake, decorated with constellations and tiny sugar bubbles. The girls stood behind it, their faces glowing in the candlelight. As everyone gathered, Ava leaned toward Lily. They nodded in unison. Everyone, Ava called out, we have an announcement. The crowd fell quiet. It was the first time the girls had spoken to a group since the accident. We made a decision, Lily continued, as if rehearsed. We sent a message to Mom last week using balloons, Ava said. We told her we're happy again, and she doesn't have to worry anymore. And we told her we have Emily now, Lily added. She taught us how to speak again and make magical cookies. And we've decided, Ava said, locking eyes with Emily, that Emily is part of our family. Not as a nanny, just as Emily. She doesn't need a different title, Lily finished. She just needs to be Emily. Emily gripped Nathan's hand tightly, as if grounding herself from the flood of emotion. He squeezed back, wordless support. So when we blow out the candles, our wish already came true, Lily said, because Emily said yes to staying. Right, Emily? All eyes turned to her. She stepped forward, voice shaking with emotion. Yes, she said softly, it's the greatest honor of my life. The girls jumped with joy, their happiness radiating through the garden. Time to blow out the candles, Ava declared. Nathan and Emily stood behind the girls as the guests sang. The sunset bathed everything in golden light, making it feel like a moment from a fairy tale. Wait, Lily shouted. We're missing something important. She pulled a familiar green bubble bottle from her pocket, the same one from that very first morning, and handed it to Emily like passing on a torch. To help the wish fly higher. Emily nodded, dipped the wand, and blew a shimmering arc of bubbles into the twilight. The girls looked at each other, took a deep breath, and blew out all the candles in one go. Applause erupted. Nathan wrapped his arms around Emily and the girls, forming a quiet, complete circle. Family, he whispered, just for them to hear. 1 month later, they held a simple wedding in that very garden. Emily wore a plain white dress, wildflowers tucked into her hair. Nathan stood in a soft gray suit. There were no tents, no crowd. Just close family, fresh blooms, and 2 little girls in silk white dresses holding baskets of petals. As Emily walked forward, Ava and Lily tossed the flowers into the air, giggling. Petals spun like magic through the sunlight, drifting gently to the grass. Emily reached for Nathan's hand, eyes steady. No fear, no hesitation. And as their vows echoed in the soft breeze, everyone knew. This wasn't just a wedding. It was a family rebuilt by love, by loss, and by choosing each other.